Welcome to the RotoWire DFS show. I'm Adam Zdroik, joined by Ryan Belongia to talk Tuesday's Champions League slate at DraftKings. We got a 6-game slate. First 6-game Champions League slate of the season. Of course, we also have the early 2-gamer that is usually fun to play, but the contests are smaller, and at the end of the day, I don't want to cover it. So there you go. But Ryan, you're writing the article right now. How excited are you for this slate on a scale of 1 to 10 as we look at the odds report here with Manchester City at 92% chance to win?
Oh man, yeah. Unfortunately, I got to say 1 for that in terms of level of excitement. It would have been okay, but DraftKings just completely dropped the ball with the salaries. City 92% home favorites against Crvena Zvezda.
The English term is Red Star Belgrade, so we'll just go with that.
Yeah, for sure. Out of Serbia. Yeah. I mean, just look at the numbers. You rarely see a total that high, almost 3. And yeah, the pricing's ridiculous. Haaland is up to 11.8. Even he's a little cheap, but his goal scoring odds are minus 500. I mean, that's just outrageous. Favorite to score a brace. And then everyone else on City is way too cheap. So it's not a very fun slate from that perspective. And it's not even really that fun of a slate to talk about because like Alvarez and Foden are $2,000 underpriced at least. The defenders are all too cheap. I think every one of them. So you don't really have too many actual decisions from an optimal standpoint or from a cash game perspective. Like going away from that is just like too thin. And then Barcelona's there too, I guess we should mention, in a very soft matchup at home against Antwerp. So I guess, some people might have a decision, do you play Haaland and Lewandowski together? Because, it's a pretty good spot for him too. Minus 275 goal scoring odds, clear hat trick upside there. And you can afford it. Because there's cheap value at defender and at one of the midfield spots. But if you do that, you have to leave out one of those City guys. So maybe that's a decision for some people. I don't know. For me, it's a pretty clear stack City slate for cash games, and then we can talk about some things for tournaments. It'll make it interesting for tournaments.
Yeah, you mentioned the prices. The problem here is for cash games, okay, cash games are one thing. We always have a lot of Premier League slates where it's like, okay, you just jam one of these big favorites in and then fill out the rest. And that's kind of where we're at with these cheap Manchester City pieces. We'll get in a little bit about lineups and such as well. But for tournaments, the other problem is that it's such a good matchup that, okay, I mean, Manchester City, like if you fade them and like they score 6 goals kind of a thing, like you're going to lose. And like it's just going to be, okay, the Man City stacks are going to win. They're going to win 6-0 or something like that. I looked at Red Star Belgrade's recent results and like they aren't even playing well in their own league. So like what are we even expecting here? They lost 2-1 at some team called Kukuriki, and they lost 3-2 at some team called Vajdavac. So now they're going to Manchester City. Okay, I mean, it's not 1-1. Maybe they're putting everything in a Champions League here, but it is just annoying where we just have these Foden and Alvarez just at 8K because if, as you said, probably 2K underpriced, if not more. But if they're at 10K, that forces you to make some decisions with your lineup. But both at 8K, like you can fit them in pretty easily with really anyone else. So if we had more expensive guys, and then maybe at the end of the day, there's a couple guys that get braces, there's someone gets a hat trick, something, you got to decide between those guys. But because of the cheap Man City pieces, it's like, well, we don't have to make that many decisions. And if they score 5, 6, 7 goals, uh, then they're going to win tournaments too. So I guess the hope is that, okay, maybe they do win by a bunch. And it's just like, okay, Haaland gets 1 goal subbed off at halftime. The other guys get 1 goal or an assist or something. They get subbed off in the 60th minute. And it's like, okay, some younger guys come in. Oscar Bob comes in from the bench, something crazy like that. But as we get into lineups here, I guess we'll have to talk. So this Manchester City, I guess we'll stick on Manchester City here. Pep Guardiola, so he doesn't like to rotate that much if it's not required, because he just loves winning so much that, if he doesn't have to rotate, he doesn't want to rotate. He doesn't rotate, but we could see, theoretically, we could see some different names in there, like Matheus Nunes, Rico Lewis could start. We could see Sergio Gomez in there. So that would mix some things up. Doku is in here as well, coming off a pretty solid game for him, so he could start. I mean, we may get a situation where maybe Alvarez doesn't start, maybe Foden doesn't start, something like that. I don't know if it'd be, Haaland doesn't start, but there will be some changes throughout the team, is what you'd expect. Even if there aren't, you could also see, okay, it's 3-0 at halftime, and then 3 substitutes come on after 45. So I guess that's something to take into account as well. But for Champions League, Ryan, just to start things off here, how different do you play Champions League? I guess cash games. I mean, for tournaments, it's okay. You're always going for goals, obviously, for tournaments, but for cash games, how different is Champions League than Premier League?
Yeah, it's pretty different. I think cash games may be less different. There's just more goals, basically, like you mentioned. But for tournaments, in Premier League at least, you're still like, floor guys are pretty good plays because there's not that many goals sometimes, and you can still get there on floor, I guess, and be optimal. In Champions League, that's much harder, especially in these group stages. There's a ton of goals and, usually multiple braces. I guess like an easy example is, it's a bit different now, but the Toni Kroos types and the Kimmich types, usually avoid in tournaments. The, 10-point floor guys that are kind of expensive, but don't really score goals. Yeah, you're not looking for that in tournaments. I don't know. In cash games, sometimes it's still okay. I think it's easy to say you're just looking for goals in general. Like you mentioned, like, what are you going to do for tournaments if you fade Manchester City? You have to target goals, or else you're just dead. Like, that's the reason it's so tough to fade these guys, because you're not going to get there on floor. I don't know. It's not really much else to say.
Yeah. I mean, it's extremely easy. I just did it really quickly. Just threw in 6 Man City guys. We have Rodri also. It has to be mentioned. He's 5,400. He was, I think, 7,400 at West Ham over the weekend, and now, 92% favorite. He's cheaper. I wouldn't say he's a must, but if you just want to plug in this full Manchester City team, then it's there for the taking. So we'll talk about these games a little bit as we go on, but I think we can pretty much, go really quickly through cash games here. So as you said, Haaland, Alvarez, and Foden. Foden would take up a midfield spot there. Let's just say that, I mean, I guess you figure that 2 of those guys are starting. So no matter what, you're probably looking at those 2 guys at forward, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one of them doesn't start, but that just makes the other guy more playable, you could argue,
right.
as well.
Maybe one of them doesn't start, but City don't really have too many attackers at the moment. So yeah, maybe one of them doesn't start, but yeah, you're for sure playing 2 of them. It's just too cheap. I guess if one of them doesn't start, then what do you do? Maybe you can play Lewandowski if you want. If I guess, should we go to other positions? I don't know. Like, I'm just
Yeah,
like,
it's just like
you're not playing any other forwards in cash games besides Manchester City or maybe Lewandowski, and I don't
Lewandowski.
even want to do that. Um,
Yeah, basically with these odds, so as you said, minus 500 for Holland, Lewandowski's minus 275. Like Holland should be 14K, and
It's like you
Lewandowski.
said at the start, it's such a hard slate to talk. Well, it's an easy slate to talk about. It's a hard slate to say a lot of things about because they're not giving us any decisions.
Yeah,
Like you said, if these guys were over 10K, like they should be, then it's a more interesting slate because you actually have to make some tough decisions. There's just no decisions here.
we're basically getting an extra 4K in our lineups just from Alvarez and Foden being 8K. Is
Right.
basically what it is. So yeah, okay, let's move to midfield. So one of those spots, okay, one of those spots is Foden, and let's just say Foden doesn't start, so we can actually talk about something here.
For sure.
um, so who were you looking up first up? Joao Felix actually got, I think it was his first start over the weekend for Barcelona. I think he took all set pieces for him, though Gundogan did not play, and he has taken set pieces in the past. Joao Felix is 8,500. Gundo is 6,900. So those couple Barcelona guys there. Again, Felix could also be played in a forward spot if you really felt like it. But who else stands out here in terms of cash games? And we can
Yeah.
we can dive into these matchups a little more if you want to.
Well, yeah, you're probably going to want the Barcelona set piece taker. Um, I don't think anyone necessarily knows who that is. It's Ben Gundogan, but like you said, Felix started his first match over the weekend, took all the corners, and they haven't played together yet. I don't think at all. So, do they split? I don't know. Does one of them take priority? Maybe. Then you're going to have also Marcus Alonso maybe back out there. I mean, if they rotate it all, he sort of adds another
Mhm.
dimension with the left foot. He hasn't really been playing much. I don't know. You're probably going to want you would want the Barcelona set piece taker, but it's tough to know for sure. I guess you might know for sure depending on the lineup. I said in my article, if I'm going to spend money anywhere besides City and Barcelona, like any significant amount of money, I think it'd probably have to be for Calvin Stengs, for Feyenoord. They are the third biggest favorite on the slate at home against Celtic, and he's been taking the majority of their set pieces since signing from Nice over the summer. Seems like a pretty good player. He's an attacking player. It's a good matchup for them. So yeah, if I'm going away from City or Barca, I'd probably look to him first. I don't know. Like, does anyone else stand out for you?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the odds, I think we should mention, some people maybe are like Kelvin Stings. Who? What's going on here? But
Right.
yeah, Vineyard are the third biggest favorite. These are implied goal total is close to 2 here, 61%. So, if you're playing Premier League, these are pretty good odds. Some slates that would be like the biggest favorite on the slate. Feyenoord, a pretty high scoring team as well, so that's to be taken into account. Their usual starting forward, Santiago Jimenez, is suspended, but Minta is, I think you say it, Minta. He's like a 19-year-old. He's pretty solid as well. But for Celtic, so in addition to not being the best defensive team, I'd argue, they also don't have probably their best center back, Carter Vickers, is out. So, they got a couple guys here. They struggled a bit in Champions League last season, and I'm not sure they may be worse than last season, you could argue. I mean, given how Spurs have looked, you probably could say that they don't have as good of a manager either, and they have a worse team than last season. So I mean, we could see like 3-4 goals from Feyenoord, just something that you could look at in tournaments. And I mean, I'm jumping a little bit here between cash and tournaments here, but we mentioned the Man City guys. Okay, maybe they're gonna go, sub off at 45, and okay, goal assist. Maybe it's like 15 to 20 points for them. But maybe Feyenoord's just like, okay, we're back in Champions League, and they rack up 3-4 goals and a massive floor, and you get guys like Stengs who, maybe he's 25, 30 points, something like that. So this is a different tournament route, but I mean, even with set pieces as well for Stengs, just another option that you can actually use in cash games, but as your original question was, is there anyone else? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I just no. I'll throw in for tournaments. You mentioned Minta. Is that? I think that's what we're going with.
We'll say that for now. Yeah.
But pretty good price on him because it was supposed to be Jimenez, who's 11K, and they've been scoring a ton of goals in the league. Jimenez had scored in 4 straight, Braces in 2 of them. They'd scored 6 goals a couple times recently. So you're getting one of their forwards a lot cheaper than you would have if Jimenez was there.
They have 17 goals in their last 3 games. Granted, weaker competition, but maybe not weaker competition given, their opponent in this matchup against Celtic. So, yeah,
that's an interesting spot for tournaments. And then, we're, almost halfway through the show. Haven't mentioned Mbappe yet. 4th biggest favorite. Not a bad spot for PSG at home. Same total as Feyenoord. Just the thing, I think that the thing that stands out for me is it's one of the only opportunities like to get leverage with Mbappe. You're pretty much never going to be able to get leverage with Mbappe because he's always going to be so popular. People will still play him here because he's Mbappe, but he will get squeezed because there's both Haaland and Lewandowski there. And Mbappe obviously has hat trick upside. So that's a tournament play too.
So in terms of that matchup, what are your thoughts here? I'd say that both PSG and Borussia Dortmund are worse than they have been in prior seasons. Maybe not the end of the season. Maybe Dortmund will play a little better. I don't think they've been playing that well in league play. They have a home draw against Bochum, who is one of the worst teams in the league frequently. I mean, you look at their back line, and okay, a lot of the same guys though. A lot of the same guys though. They added Sabitzer and their forwards. Their forwards had a great run last season. They did score 4 over the weekend, so maybe they're turning some things around. But PSG without Messi, they're still figuring things out. And then Mbappe's having his own issues there. So I think that we could see maybe both defenses in this game are terrible, and it's extremely back and forth. It's like 3-3, and then in that spot, okay, you're looking for those goals. You're looking for some kind of stack with Mbappe, but we could see maybe something uglier as well. Yeah, what are your thoughts in terms of both those teams here going to this matchup?
I think I agree with what you said in that it's the matchup with the most amount of variance, at least to me. You don't both teams are probably worse, and you don't really know what to expect. And you've also seen each of these teams sort of implode at different times.
In
last
Champions
year,
League.
year before in Champions League, yeah. Lose 4-0. So yeah, anything could happen in that game. Definitely could be 3-3. Definitely could be 0-0. I think it's fine to target for tournaments.
Yeah, it is. It would be if you are worried about, some of these Man City or Barcelona guys, subbing out at 45 or 60 or whatever. This would be a game where you really aren't worried about some of these guys subbing out. And if it does, go off to be a bunch of goals, there are cheaper options. Maybe not extremely cheap, but Kolo Muani is 8,600 and Goncalo Ramos are 7,500. I guess you're still worrying about those guys being subbed off, but I mean, at this point, I don't know how much you need to worry about that. But The Dortmund forwards are pretty cheap as well. Adeyemi's getting back from injury. Haller's 6K. If he starts again, Malen 6K. So I mean, it's pretty easy if you want to go Mbappe and another PSG guy, then throw in a Dortmund forward kind of a thing. I mean, it's pretty easy to put something together for that game.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good argument for playing Mbappe is that like Haaland or Lewandowski could get subbed early up 4-0. And one goal from Haaland, you're not going to want that on this slate in all likelihood. So there is a path to fading those guys.
Yeah, and Mbappe, your hope is okay.
And he's playing 90. Yeah, Mbappe's playing 90. I mean,
yeah. Even if it's not 3-3, let's say it's 2-2, you still could get 30 points from Mbappe, basically.
For sure.
I guess we were talking about midfield, so we can go back there. So we mentioned Rodri 5,400, Gavi 4,700. We always get on these Champions League slates, there always seems to be like a sub 4K midfielder that maybe we weren't expecting, or maybe has some kind of role in set pieces. Obviously, it's kind of hard to know in the first Champions League game. So I don't know if anyone stands out here for you.
I don't know. Stands out. I don't know if that's a way to put it, but yeah, I guess for DFS, right back to the usual suspect, Shakhtar. I remember those when we played Mudryk for 3.3K or whatever, and he scored a brace against Real Madrid.
You got the next Mudryk?
No, I wouldn't call him the next Mudryk, but he's cheaper and he plays for the same team. And it's this Alexei Kashchuk.
Okay, yep.
3,100. I mean, what are we doing here? They're not going to take many set pieces, but he splits with Sudakov, and Sudakov isn't even for sure going to start. So, yeah, again, I don't expect him to have too many set pieces, but he's 3,100, and you're going to need a punt to play off to fit in all these expensive guys. You pretty much have to punt midfielder no matter who you're rostering at forward. So yeah, give me this Kashchuk guy.
What are your thoughts on Shakhtar here? They're a home underdog against Porto.
Yeah, they're priced still. They're cheap. I don't know what my thoughts are necessarily. Like, it's not a great matchup. But
I think it's a fine matchup. I mean,
it could be worse. It could be
right.
worse, like much worse, right? Like, Porto will have most of the possession, but there should be opportunities in this game for Shakhtar. I like how they're at home. They always play better at home in Champions League. So yeah, I mean, I think this is the spot to punt.
Where is this game at here? Let's double check. I know they weren't playing. Yeah, they're playing in Hamburg here. They're playing in Germany.
Good point. Still doesn't really change much.
Yeah, I do remember just talking about, Shakhtar last season just because they couldn't play at home, so that maybe took away some of their usual.
Right. No, good point.
But yeah, I mean, just going against this Porto team, there's not many changes for Porto. This is kind of the same team. They've kind of been running out for the past 2 seasons almost, I'd say. Maybe they got a couple new midfielders in there. But Pepe, their winger, not Pepe, the 40-year-old center back, is suspended. So that would mean like Ivan, Jamie, however you say, wherever this guy's from, may get the start here. So he's also another guy that's down there. Where is he at? I just saw him, 3,900. So, winger and Porto are favored. So,
okay. I didn't see that.
Yeah. So another guy that's
interesting. Interesting. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I don't know how many people are going to look down here. This is just like 2 teams that not many people follow. And, Porto are slightly favored. It's not like they're one of the lower implied goal totals for both teams. I don't know how many people are actually going to be looking at Porto and Shakhtar.
Yeah, and I like. So this Kashchuk guy, he's not necessarily a lock because Mateus Nunez is 4,200, or I shouldn't even say like Nunez might be the punt for 4,200. Like I wouldn't fault anyone for just playing another Man City player in such a good spot. You might be
Would you
able to.
like Nunez over Gavi at 4,700?
Yes, I mean, it depends. Like, yeah, probably just because I think it's a slightly better spot for City, but sometimes Gabby is more attacking, and then sometimes not, depending on what lineup Barcelona rolls out. So yeah, I don't mind him either though.
Yeah, he did play. I think they went back to the 4-3-3 this past week, and he did play in a deeper role where, okay, I'm looking now. He had no shots and no chances created in a 5-0 win.
Like
So
this would be Nunez's first start for City, and maybe one of the best chances he'll ever have to score a goal. I mean, it's just such a soft matchup. So
would you feel more comfortable with Nunez because maybe there's a little more tape with him at Wolves than if like what if Sergio Gomez actually started on the left wing and he's 4,500?
oh, he would be better actually, just because
He's going to
he does
cross
well
you.
in these matchups. I would expect like plenty of crosses to Haaland in these spots. I mean, sometimes just he does really well in these spots. That's way too cheap for Gomez.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah,
We
you
just
might be
run.
just best off. Maybe you're best off not playing one of these Shakhtar guys. Like sometimes you don't want to waste any of the 5 outfield positions on underdog players if you don't have to. But then you'd have to play one of them at defender and switch up keeper, to fill the third 3-team requirement and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess you got to weigh where you want to not have Manchester City.
Yeah, we were like
Where is it safe to fade? Where is it safest to fade the City player?
we just had a Manchester City discussion. Then it was like, okay, like what other teams do we want in midfield? And then it was like, okay, well, what if Nunez and Sergio Gomez starts? And then we just came back to Manchester City. So that's the kind of slate we're talking about here. Um,
Yeah,
there
like
is
yeah.
there is one guy that just popped out to me. Rio Hatate could get the start here for Celtic. He's 3,100. He'd be playing in a front three. Fine yard. They're scoring goals, but I don't think they're getting too many clean sheets in their league. So I think it's the same with Celtic. I think they can score. It's just their defense kind of lacks a little bit. So I mean, it's just like, okay, 31. Maybe I mean this is more tournaments. You're not expecting too much in cash games, but just like you're just getting a front three player in a game that could. I mean, this is a game that could have 4 or 5 goals. Maybe Celtic get 1-2 kind of thing, even as an underdog. In comparison, I guess Furuhashi's 4K. I guess all these guys are really cheap. Maeda's is 3,600. So I guess all these Celtic guys are really cheap. Just Hatete is sitting in midfield there at the bottom. But I just thought they needed a mention here because I'm not completely sold on Fine Yard, just keeping clean sheets here.
Nope, I think that's a good call. Definitely. I think Celtic have a goal in them. And going back to your original question about how to win in Champions League, you need to find these random goals. And it's from like a cheap guy like that. And you also have more opportunities than in like normal Premier League slates just because there's way more goals. And they're big slates, so you can find leverage easier. Like there's going to be plenty of 5% owned guys on this slate that can score 2 goals, and you just really need one of them.
I thought we were going to get an opportunity for Igor Paisho, a winger for Feyenoord, to be like 5K or something, and I look it up. He's 10.4.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and he's a good tournament play too because he doesn't split set pieces, but he'll take 1 or 2 while Stengs will take the rest of them from what I've seen. And just he's got goal scoring upside too. He's a young Brazilian. Good tournament play though because no one's gonna want to click that.
Yeah, in that plus 10K range. So for defender, let's just throw out. Okay, we got the Manchester City defenders. All of them are under 4K. Okay, you could theoretically just plug those guys in and not worry about anything and go with the assumption that, okay, Man City 56% clean sheet and like you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone, I mean, I think you can also do that because I'm not sure there's, specific defenders who actually stand out. There is not like, when we're doing Premier League, there's not like a Trippier. There's not a TAA on this slate. There's not like a dominant, majority set piece taker defender here. It's just kind of like, okay, Hakimi's the most
Right.
expensive player. And I mean,
Right.
he's a good player. I don't know if he's, 6,700 DFS kind of player where, he's guaranteed to get you 10 points or anything. Are there any defenders here that you'd be willing to look up? I know you mentioned Marcos Alonso at 5,800, but anyone else up
Definitely
here?
not. Definitely not Hakimi. I think Cancelo would have the most upside. Him or Marcos Alonso, they're the same price. Whoever starts at fullback for Barcelona probably has the most upside. Cancelo, I think he got a goal or an assist recently. I mean, we know who
Just
he is.
scored. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the same guy, and like these are his type of matchups where you don't have to do much defending, and he'll look to find Lewandowski. He'll look to take some long shots. Like these are the perfect matchups for him. So I think that's a great tournament play. Set pieces, yeah. The only one is Molina for Madrid should split sets, but it's not a priority at all on this slate. What they're away to Lazio, so yeah, just that plus City being underpriced. I mean, look, Rico Lewis is 2,900. That's if Rico Lewis doesn't start, Kyle Walker's 3,500. Like, what's up with that? I mean, and then Ake and City have 60% clean sheet odds. Like all those guys should be over 4K. Every single center back should be over 4K. It's just it's ridiculous pricing. So you're playing at least one City guy. Maybe you're gonna need to switch it up if you have too much City. So maybe you'll need one defender that's not City. In that case, I don't mind this 3K guy on Shakhtar. I think he's actually like he attacks a little bit. Azarov. He got an assist for Georgia over the international break against Norway. And it's the same as these Shakhtar guys are just
KK.
Yeah, he plays with KK. Yep. These Shakhtar guys are just cheap, so I think he's the cheapest fullback on the slate. If you don't count, I'm not counting Red Star guys or Antwerp guys. So then, yeah, he's the cheapest if you don't count them.
Yeah, I was looking up the Feyenoord guys. We got Elstar Johnston for all the MLS fans. He used to play at
3,100.
Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a similar option. Similar option to Azarov.
Yeah, I was going to say when you mentioned Molina, there's a reason we haven't touched very much on Atletico Madrid, Lazio, but we got to mention him because we got to give a shout to our guy Luis here. We got to give a shout to Luis. I don't know if he's going to be watching, but Atletico Madrid, forever, it seems like always just a defensive team. They're playing in like a 5-3-2 formation. They got some injuries as well, so there could be some changes at wing back. They started this young guy Riquelme, I believe, at one of the wing backs recently. There could be some changes. We got Molina and Azpilicueta in there. Just funny, Azpilicueta. He's been getting a bunch of starts at Atletico this season. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of, Atletico matches, they're always kind of just matches you don't want to target in terms of DFS. And are you looking at them? You mentioned Molina.
Look at go scroll down again to the totals of the games. Yeah. There's that one that's in like dark red. That's so yeah, no, not for me, but I'll play the goalies. I think the goalies in that for either team are good tournament plays. Just another way to differentiate a little bit, that you can get lucky and win a tournament with 20 points from one of the keepers. You could find
Yeah.
a clean sheet in either side of that game.
Yeah. Are you otherwise like kind of avoiding just that matchup in general in tournaments?
I think for me, it's just a cross off, unfortunately. Like,
Yeah.
because we have the City and Barca, if it was just City, okay. But when you have City and Barca, like, it's very thin. It starts to get very thin to try to fade all of that. And then, Feyenoord and
Right.
Mbappe, like, is there a guy in that Lazio Madrid game that can score 2 goals? Yeah, but I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good
it's
luck.
just a cross off for me on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, you'd go what Griezmann, and he's 9,300. Okay, Alberto has been having a good season. He's 8,800. Yeah, it just feels like okay, you're hoping for a result that the odds don't suggest is going to happen, and it's almost a guarantee that there's going to be 3, 4, maybe 5 other teams with 3+ goals kind of a thing, and
Right.
you're just going with the match with the 2.55 implied goal total. It's just not a great strategy, is what I'll say.
You're going to
Uh,
lose a lot doing that on this slate.
yeah. Yeah, so goalkeeper Ederson 6K. We like the clean sheet odds. It's 56%. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned just on these Champions League slates or slates in general, some of these cheaper goalkeepers they'll make more saves and clean sheets are still there. Like with Ederson, I mean, what are we expecting? A max of 12 points with a win, clean sheet, and 1 save? Is that worth it at 6K when you can go down to the Lazio Atletico Madrid guys? At least in cash games here.
Okay, in cash games, it might be worth it. In cash games, it might be worth it. In tournaments, it's definitely not. In cash games, he might be underpriced. If somehow you can afford, if somehow you have that money, he's underpriced for those clean sheet odds. I saw they were almost 60% before. Now that they've dropped a little, but yeah, he doesn't have much of a ceiling, like you said, and the slate is too big for an expensive keeper to finish with like 10 or 12 points and be on the winner, because there's just too many chances that one of those cheap keepers is going to score double digits. If there was only 3 cheap keepers, then sure, maybe 12 points will be good enough to win a tournament from Ederson, but one of these cheap guys is scoring 10 points. So I'll probably be just mixing in different cheap keepers in the big GPP.
So you still think? I mean, yeah, he should be like 7K, but
Or
I
like
guess
even 65. I mean, like,
yeah. I think that I mean, it's easy to get him in your lineup because I mean, we've mentioning all show that these Manchester City players are cheap, so it's not the most difficult thing to get Ederson in your team. So I guess that makes sense. And then you throw in the clean sheet odds. It's like, okay, I'll take the 12 points, and then Manchester City are up 5-0. He has no saves, and someone on Red Star Crosso, whoever, someone gets a goal here in the 85th minute because there's a bunch of 19-year-olds playing for Man City, and you lose that clean sheet. And it's like, why did I just play Ederson? But I mean, that's always the risk you run with playing Ederson. Really, I think the decision will be, okay, do you want Ederson or someone cheaper like Providel? So you're saving 1,600. That will give you what maybe in your utility spot or something like that. They'll save you. Is the 1,600 you're going to have left over, the 1K, the 2K left over? Are you going to find someone that's actually worth it in your utility?
right. That's
And play
exactly
over
what it
him.
is. And basically, for me, it might change depending on what lineups we get, but that's like Stengs or Gundogan. It's like the exact difference, you know? So,
Mm,
I don't know,
Gundo.
it's tough. So,
I don't know if Gundo's worth it. I'd rather get Stings.
right. So then you're going to want to spend down at keeper.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I'm
if
actually
João Felix didn't start, then I might just play Gundo. I'd feel pretty comfortable with Gundo if I knew he was taking sets.
Yeah, so I can't even play Pro at all. So this Man City lineup, we got let's just say okay, Ake, Walker, with Holland, Alvarez, Foden, and then we got Kaschuk and Stings. So we're basically at 3,700 for goalkeeper. So
Perfect.
we got
I have the
two
same lineup.
options. That's what we learned over the past 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, who would you rather play, the Glazer or Butez? Butej.
Definitely the Antwerp keeper.
Okay.
Obviously there's, just look at all our City players. So like, ideally we're playing for 5-0 City,
That's
and
true.
like
That's a
we're
good
playing
point.
for Barcelona to maybe not go crazy. We don't want Lewandowski to go crazy. So yeah, like has to be the Antwerp keeper.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Yeah.
punt defender a little bit more and get up to the Shakhtar keeper, or maybe you get up to the Celtic keeper. That's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was doing this with Ake and Walker, and we're just assuming, okay, Rico Lewis isn't starting. And even then, like we mentioned, some cheaper guys that are options as well as a Rop. So you could go cheaper than Kyle Walker at 3,500. Maybe you could probably say it's safer. You're just hoping for the Kyle Walker clean sheet, but you're also not at risk of Barcelona getting 4 or 5 goals with, one save out of your guy and he's -8 or something like that. So that is like the main reason of why you rather spend down at
Right.
defender
You'd
kind
like
of a
to get
thing.
up to Providel, like you said. Like the home team in the game with the lowest total.
Yeah.
I'd feel best about him. 4,400. Yeah, he looks pretty good.
You're not worried that Atletico Madrid scored 7 goals a couple weeks ago?
Just no, gives him a little more save upside.
I think they also got they did not score against Valencia in their most recent game. I excluded that for a reasoning in my argument there. Yeah, they did not score, but they also have, as you can see here, we got a bunch of injuries for Atletico Madrid, so you can also throw that in there. Lamar's out, Rodrigo DePaul, Depay, Memphis, Koke's out as well, and everyone's favorite center back, so Yunchu, is injured as well.
Oh
All right.
yeah, that that lineup doesn't look great.
No, I was adjusting it this morning. I mean, yeah, like Espilicueta is in there. I mean, it's pretty much all their usual guys. It's just like they're
Yeah,
all older. They're all older. Saul's still there, except for Pablo Barrios there. He's getting a bunch of playing time. Yeah, I'm not sure what their bench actually looks like. All right, so for tournaments, Tropical Bear is asking us about Hanko here. Where is Hanko? Center back? Is he a PK taker? What are we looking at here?
has he been playing? Yeah, he's one of these guys. Has he been playing center back for them?
Let's find out.
Because
Let's find
sometimes he
out.
plays left back. It's this. I
He,
think he's been playing center back.
he mainly plays as a center back. He has a goal and an assist in the last 3 games. Or sorry, wait, no, he scored for Liechtenstein.
Should I check if he takes pens?
Yeah, might as well. We'll see. I mean, he
Only
is
they're
playing center
looking for
back.
these 5K center backs to take a pen.
Yeah, I mean, Hartman and Gertruda are the left back and fullback.
Yeah.
So I can confirm that. So the only reason you'd play Hanko is that he's on PKs. Um, the lineup will be critical. Yeah, I mean, okay. Otherwise, for tournaments, okay, I think we got Manchester City out of the way. We talked enough about them. I do notice they're playing against former Columbus Crew. Is this correct? Dejanek is playing as a wingback. This guy plays everywhere. Milo Stejanek is playing as a wing back against Manchester City. How his last year has been crazy. All right, so what's the move here? What's the move? We haven't really talked about Ferran Torres, but I mean, this is still Barcelona. What are you gonna
That's
have
a
a
guy.
favorite?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wrote
Hank,
basically the same thing about Ferran Torres. He's an afterthought, but that makes him like in consideration for GPPs because of all the City and Barca attackers, he'll probably be the lowest owned, right? So yeah, Ferran's okay.
honestly, you could play like you could play a full Manchester City team, which includes Cancelo, Gundogan, and Ferran, and
Mm-hmm.
then you get some of the Man City guys. Then you're basically your whole team is Manchester current or former players. So
Is there somebody on here that used to be on City that can fill the third team requirement?
there might be.
There might be, but I just don't have it off the top of my head. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
don't see anyone. We'll just say Espilicueta for fun. All
Yeah,
right,
what else are
so
we gonna maybe Lamine Yamal starts for Barcelona, 16-year
the
old
16-year-old,
sensation.
you
Yeah, I
could,
mean, could see him starting.
yeah, they could rotate some. I kind of went off what the UEFA projections were. I think this is outside of Alonso. I think this is fairly similar to what they did over the weekend. I guess I took Gavi out for Gundogan here. Yeah, I mean, similar to Man City, like there probably will be rotation it's just impossible to project. So, uh, something to keep in mind there as well. So, what is your favorite move going to be in tournaments here as we wind down? Is it going off of doing something other than Man City or finding like a weird Man City lineup that no one else is going to use, which seems pretty difficult?
Um,
I mean, does it include
yeah,
Bernardo Silva at 700?
no, maybe yeah, that's a move. I-
It's a
it's
move.
my yeah. My lineups are going to include some Manchester City players. Like I don't know. That's without getting more specific.
You
I'm
need
gonna
at
look
least like two, I'd say, and even if you fade Haaland, like you still need a couple Man City guys just because they're probably going to score 5 goals.
right unless you go like a full Barca stack. Like that's an option too, I guess. Like they could score 5 or 6. So I shouldn't like you need some players from those two teams on this slate. At least I think so. If you want to take more risk, you could, play some Feyenoord guys and maybe that PSG Dortmund game. I mean, I'm going to have one-offs. Like I don't like these slates. There's different ways to play them, but I've won them in the past with a lot of the chalky guys and a 5% guy that scores a brace, or a 7% forward that scores a brace, or a cheap midfielder that gets a goal. But there's going to be, some City and Barca players in those lineups.
Yeah,
I
and I
don't know.
think your one-offs are going to be from Feyenoord
A
unless you
lot
go
of the
elsewhere.
time, right?
I'm just reading off of what you're saying here.
Yeah, no, it's just this slate sucks. And is the bet like this slate sucks. If you're doing anything besides that, it's just very thin. It's fine. It's just not gonna win very often. But it can. There's a lot of leverage there. If it goes right, then it goes right. But you're gonna lose most of the time if you're fading these massive favorites.
How many of your lineups are going to fade Haaland?
Oh, I can get behind fading Haaland much more so than fading Alvarez and Foden. One, because of the price, and two, because 20 points from Haaland doesn't kill you. Not at all. And there's so many outcomes where they're up 3-0 at half and he subs off. So yeah, I'm gonna and he'll be the most popular player on the slate. So yeah, I'll be fading him in that main tournament for sure.
All right, I pulled up last season's Champions League game logs. Okay, so we got opening win at Sevilla 4-0. Haaland, 2 goals, 32 points in 70 minutes. Home against Borussia Dortmund, 1 goal, 16 points, almost 90 minutes. Home against Copenhagen, which is more similar to this, 2 goals, 45 minutes, still got the 29 points. That is that is the worry.
Yeah.
And then he was either arrested or he was maybe not 100% once the next Copenhagen match. So that 5-0 Copenhagen result, I think, is kind of what we're looking at for this game. I pulled up the game log here. So we got 30 shots for Manchester City, 2 for Copenhagen, 16 shots on goal. So yes, if you remember correctly, back in last season's Champions League, we had these goalkeepers with double digit saves, and just something to keep an eye
You
on.
might have that here. You might
This is one of those.
that's a good point too. If you're fading City and Barca, or even if you have just one City or Barca player, playing the opposite keeper is a pretty good move in tournaments. I'm going to be doing that for sure.
Yeah, the other thing I guess I'll say is that, as I said at the top, like Pep, if he doesn't have to rotate his side, he won't. He's not a guy that's just going to automatically rotate. Also in that game, Julian Alvarez, though probably not a consistent player then, he played 90. Grealish went 90. Gundogan went 90. Mahrez went 90. So,
yeah, the most likely guy to get subbed first is Haaland.
Yeah.
He's
But he's also most likely
player.
to score 2 goals and 30 points in 45 minutes.
Yep.
But what if he doesn't? What if he doesn't?
That's the whole slate.
Unfortunately. You got anything else here? Anything else stands out? I mean, we talked about PSG Dortmund a little bit. I mean, Shakhtar. We haven't really mentioned the Porto guys, but how much do you want to play these Porto guys in Germany in this spot? I mean, maybe. I mean, some of these guys we look to a lot. I mentioned Ivan Jamie as a cheaper option. Taremi, I believe Taremi's taking PKs for him. Let me just double check that price. I mean, he's 8,700. Again, a lot of these guys are just guys you kind of want to play. Just seem like overpriced when Foden and Alvarez are right there too. So
that's not a bad spot to target, though. We've seen Shakhtar just
implode. Yeah,
definitely. And yeah, no one's gonna play Porto. People are gonna want to play Shakhtar, and they're gonna want to play the Shakhtar keeper. It just all makes sense. Yeah, Porto's a good GPP spot.
So Fran Navarro and Galeno.
Any of them, actually, they'll all be. I mean, Taremi takes pens, right?
I believe so. He did in the past, unless this Fran Navarro guy is taking him now, which I doubt. Let's see. Joe Mario, 3,800. Let me quickly look at the fullback pricing. Wendell is 4,100. So, yeah, about in the correct pricing there in the 4K range for the Porto fullbacks. All right, you got anything else here?
I don't think so. It's tough to have much else.
Yeah, we talked about every game. I think we're good here. I think we're good. No respect for Red Star. Copenhagen, not so much. No. I mean, I think we could see a similar 30 shots for Man City and then 2 for Red Star. I think that's in the range of possibility. I think if we look at last season's cheat sheet for that Man City Copenhagen match, probably the odds are very similar to what we're dealing with here. So
yeah, maybe if they were playing in Belgrade.
Yeah, and then it'll only be 4-0 instead of 5-0.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
Yeah, if you want to check out those box scores, just go to previous season. I went to Haaland here. Just click on previous season. Really easy. I just type in UCL, and you can look up those box scores. Just click them right there. But to get those box scores, rotowire.com/soccer trial. That's a 48-hour trial. Also to get this cheat sheet with all the stuff. Honestly, you need these cheat sheets for Champions League. Otherwise, it's going to be, you got to find the odds for yourself. You got to find the lineups for yourself. You got to find the suspensions and injuries for yourself. You need these cheat sheets. We're going to have him throughout Champions League, and fingers crossed we might have him for Europa League this season. No guarantees, though. No guarantees. The request has been put in. But, Ryan, this is the first slate of Champions League. It was an interesting conversation about Manchester City and Barcelona, but maybe Feyenoord, maybe Stengs, maybe Paixão, maybe Minta. Maybe they gets us to the 20K. Maybe. And I'll just say, for the sake of it, even Nusic. So I mentioned all 4 Feyenoord attackers here. So we got to get all those guys in. You can find Ryan at Ryan Belongia on X. I am at RotoZdroik, also RotoWire Soccer. Follow them for injuries and all that good stuff. But Ryan, you have an article coming up also, rotowire.com/soccer. That'll be for this slate. And then we'll, as usual, be covering Wednesday slate as well. We also got showdown content for Nottingham Forest Burnley, a much bigger matchup than any of these games. Big Monday night football. Ryan, thanks for joining me. See you, everyone. I don't know, tomorrow, I guess. We'll see when DraftKings releases their prices.
Good luck, everybody.